You blink, and it's December again. Somehow, the whole year just evaporated. You remember being 9 years old, and summer vacation felt endless, like it might never end. Now, a summer passes in what feels like a long weekend. You've probably said it out loud. Time is speeding up. But here's the strange part. Time isn't moving any faster at all. The clock on your wall ticks at exactly the same rate it did when you were 7. So if time itself hasn't changed, what has? The real answer is far stranger than, "You're just busier now." Your brain is not a clock. It's a storyteller. And the story it tells about time is built entirely out of memory, not minutes. Here's the first clue. In 1890, a psychologist named William James proposed something odd. He said, "Your sense of how fast time moves depends on how many new memories you lay down, not how many seconds pass." Memories. Think about your first year at a new school. Every hallway was unfamiliar. Every face was new information. Your brain was working overtime, tagging almost everything as significant. That mental effort left behind a dense, detailed trail. And when you look back on a period packed with new memories, it feels like it lasted longer. Now think about last Tuesday. Did anything about it stand out? Probably not. You drove the same road, sat at the same desk, scrolled the same apps. Your brain barely bothered to file it away. No new memories, no long trail. Which means, looking backward, it collapses into almost nothing. This is called the reminiscence bump, and it explains something almost everyone has noticed. Childhood summers feel infinite because childhood is a flood of firsts. First bike ride, first best friend, first heartbreak. Your brain was recording in high definition. Adulthood, for a lot of people, becomes routine. Same commute, same coffee order, same conversations on repeat. And routine is efficient for surviving, but it is terrible for making time feel long. Isn't it strange that the very thing that makes life easier, familiarity, is the same thing quietly stealing your sense of time? Consider what a single day looked like when you were 8. You woke up not knowing what you'd find outside. A new bug under a rock, a new rule to a game invented on the spot, a new argument with a sibling that felt like the end of the world. None of it was rehearsed. Every hour required your full attention because none of it had happened before. Compare that to a typical Tuesday now. You already know what your coffee will taste like. You already know what your inbox will say before you open it. You already know how the meeting will end. Your brain, sensing nothing new to catalog, quietly stops taking notes. And a day with no notes taken is a day that, months later, simply isn't there. There's a second piece to this puzzle, and it comes from neuroscientist David Eagleman. He studies how the brain estimates duration in the moment, not just in memory. And he found something wild. When people experience genuine novelty or fear, like free-falling in a controlled drop test, their brains don't actually speed up processing. Time doesn't slow down like a movie. What happens is the brain lays down far denser memories during that intense, unfamiliar moment. And denser memories, when you replay them afterward, feel like they took longer. So the slow-motion car crash feeling isn't your brain moving faster. It's your memory writing faster. You are, in a very real sense, editing your own timeline after the fact, and you don't even know you're doing it. Eagleman tested this directly. He had volunteers wear a device on their wrist that displayed a number too fast for the conscious mind to normally read, then dropped them backward off a 15-story tower into a safety net. If time genuinely slowed down during real fear, they should have been able to read that flickering number. They couldn't. Their brains weren't running in slow motion at all. What changed was only the density of what got stored afterward. The fall itself took about 3 seconds. In memory, weeks later, it still feels like it stretched far longer than 3 seconds ever could. That gap between the clock and the memory is the whole trick. Now, here's the counterintuitive twist. If dense memory equals slow time, then simply getting older shouldn't be the problem. Plenty of 80-year-olds report that certain years, the ones full of change, felt long and rich. And plenty of 20-year-olds, stuck in a repetitive routine, say time is already flying by. Age isn't the real variable. Novelty is. Psychologist Mark Whitman has studied this exact link between memory density and subjective time, and his research points to the same conclusion. It's not your birthday count that compresses your years. It's how much of each year you actually let surprise you. So why does time so reliably speed up as people get older, if novelty is the real switch? Because of a second, sneakier reason: proportion. When you were 5, 1 year was 20% of your entire life. It was enormous, relative to everything you'd ever experienced. When you're 50, 1 year is 2% of your life, the same 365 days. A completely different fraction of your existence. Your brain, without asking permission, seems to measure time partly in these ratios. That's why your 20s can feel like they last forever, while your 40s blur past in what feels like a single exhale. The math didn't just change, your whole frame of reference did. Put those two forces together, shrinking proportion and shrinking novelty, and you get exactly the effect almost everyone describes. Less new, more repeat. Less to remember, less to hold on to, and a life that, looking backward, feels like it's sliding through your fingers faster every year. There's a modern accelerant nobody had to deal with 100 years ago: your phone. Scrolling feels like the opposite of routine. Endless new images, endless new information sliding past your thumb. But your brain treats most of it as noise, not memory. A 5-second clip, followed by another 5-second clip, followed by another, rarely gets tagged as significant, because nothing about it demands anything from you. You can scroll for an hour and, an hour later, barely reconstruct what you saw. That hour, as far as your memory is concerned, might as well not have happened. Which means the device promising to fill your time most efficiently may actually be the thing erasing the most of it. Here's where it gets personal. This isn't a fact about biology you can't touch. It's a pattern about attention you actually can interrupt. Every time you take a new route home, learn an unfamiliar skill, meet someone whose life looks nothing like yours, or travel somewhere you've never stood before, you're doing the one thing that reliably stretches subjective time. You're forcing your brain to pay attention again, to stop compressing the ordinary. People often say a 2-week trip to a new country feels longer, in memory, than 3 normal months back home. That's not nostalgia talking. That's density. That's your brain, wide awake, writing everything down because none of it felt automatic. Think about your last few months. How much of it can you actually recall in detail? Not the vague sense that time passed, but specific moments, specific mornings, specific conversations. If large stretches feel like a blur, that's not a memory problem. That's a novelty problem. Your brain wasn't failing to record. It simply decided there was nothing worth recording. This also explains why the same year can feel completely different to 2 people living through it side by side. One person moves to a new city, starts an unfamiliar job, gets lost on purpose just to learn the streets. The other keeps everything exactly as it was the year before. Same calendar, same 365 mornings. But when both of them look back, one remembers a rich, layered stretch of life, and the other remembers something closer to a single gray smear. The years were identical on paper. They were nothing alike in memory. That's how little the actual passage of time has to do with how full a life feels. So the next time a year vanishes, and you catch yourself saying it went by in a flash, remember what's actually happening underneath that feeling. It's not that the clock sped up. It's that your days stopped surprising you enough to leave a mark. The version of you at 7 wasn't experiencing more time. That child was simply demanding more from every single day. And the brain rewarded that demand with a longer, richer trail of memory to look back on. You blink, and it's December again. But this time, you know why. Time never sped up at all. You just stopped giving your brain a reason to slow down and pay attention.